We are 5 students from different regions of the United States who embarked on a journey with Semester at Sea. Traveling to 14 countries across 4 continents, all connected by the Atlantic Ocean, we had the rare opportunity to witness globalization, not in a textbook or lecture, but with our own eyes and experiences. Our American perspective on transportation, centered on travel by personal car, enticed us to discover the public transportation systems available in cities throughout our voyage. We were curious to learn how we would be able to transport ourselves around these remarkable cities we would be visiting. With our focus on public transportation, we aim to experience firsthand the different modes of transportation available and aspire to draw global connections between each city, country, and continent. Regarded as home to one of the world's premier public transportation systems, London has become a model for transportation implementation and development for cities around the world. In order to better understand how London came to be a leading forefront for the world, we visited the London Transport Museum, where we were educated on the immense impact that London has made to the world's public transportation systems. The introduction of railways greatly improved transportation in London in the 1800s. In 1854, the Metropolitan Railway Company broke ground in the construction of the world's first underground railway. Originally run on steam, the first electric underground trains began in 1890. At about the same time, electric trams gave way to buses around 1930, forming the beginning of the vast bus system, now known for its bright red double-decker buses. The London Underground and its affordable fares transformed travel throughout the rapidly growing city. With its expansion, continuous improvements, and clear success, other prominent cities quickly adopted the revolutionary idea of underground travel.
London Underground was one of the first in the world. London developed it more extensively and really structured then the growth of London out into its suburbs and far suburbs. So it's a preeminent example of a metropolitan mass transit underground system.
So I'm from London, I'm 20 years old and I'm a student studying in the US. When I'm home, transport links to London are really great. I predominantly use the London Underground and the bus links. They're both very reliable, cheap, clean, safe, and it's a great way to get around. I personally don't have a car, even though I own a driver's license, and it's the same with most people my age. It's so expensive to have a car in London, or it's congested.
London, thanks to its extensive underground tube and bus systems, is now a city where owning a car is not necessary. In our 3-day stay in the city, we were able to use the underground and the bus systems easily to get ourselves around the vast city. It was also evident that great improvements to the rail, bus, walking, cycling, and river transport were made for the 2012 Olympic Games in order to meet their goal for 100% of spectators to reach the events by public transport. The renovations transformed the formerly most poorest connected parts of the city into some of the best connected. These improvements benefit the millions of passengers who use London's transportation network both now and over the coming decades. Many changes have also been made to support long-term regeneration for a more sustainable, greener future. Visiting London in the beginning of our voyage provided us with a unique lens for viewing the transportation across continents. In our stay in Paris, we were hosted by a local Parisian, Ranatea Harris-Buru, who grew up in France and also spent 4 years at a college in California. She provided us with an insider perspective of the city and its public transportation.
Living in California for 4 years, I think I realized how lucky I was growing up in Paris because I could move around using public transportation here and not there. In France in general, we use a lot of transportation through airplanes and trains. That go all around France, and in Paris more particularly we use all kinds of transportation, bus, metro, taxis, and we can even rent bikes and little cars now.
Paris was the only city on our whole voyage where we encountered rentable electric cars. With charging hubs throughout the city, these smart cars are an innovative and greener way for people to travel. They are inexpensive, easy to use, and are found frequently within Paris. Another sustainable and growing aspect of Paris's transportation are rentable bicycles. These rental bikes and cars are a clear movement towards greener transportation and are spreading throughout Europe. Although Paris's public transportation system is efficient, continuous improvements are being made.
The metro security has been improving because of all the accidents that have been happening. Other than that, there's been more buses coming in. They're even more reliable. They come more often. The metro is, I think, safer and more developed and more modern. It's getting more modernized. I think I would even improve the safety, especially in the metro on some lines, because some lines are really safe, others aren't. And that is a reason why sometimes I don't take certain lines, is because I'm scared to go there by myself as a girl in the metro. I think the fact that it goes all around Paris and all around even France, that's something that is lacking in some countries. You can't access some parts of the country or of the city using public transportation, whereas in Paris you can go all around with public transportation, and you can leave Paris with public transportation. You don't really need a car.
In our travels to Amsterdam, we met Kees de Jong, who shared with us his local perspective on transportation in Holland.
The main modes, I think it's the train and the tram and the bus system. Actually, I have a bike, so as you know, in Amsterdam everybody has at least one bike, so I don't know if this is part of the public transport, but I think Amsterdam is still a livable city because of all the bikes. Can you imagine if it would be cars?
Yeah.
So, but if I use the public transport system, I mainly use the tram and the train. Yeah.
We found that everyone around the city used an OV chip card for all of the public transportation, including buses, metro, and tram, which makes travel more convenient by eliminating tickets and the use of cash.
Actually, they are building a new metro system in Amsterdam, which costs a lot of time, money, and energy. They built a lot of new train tracks, so the system is getting better. Actually, yeah. They invested a lot of money in the public transport system in Holland. The main problem for building a metro system is that Amsterdam is built on a swamp, so they have to go very deep. I think it would be a good solution to use the water. We have water canals everywhere. To use them more for public transport. I think that would be a good solution. I think the train system in Holland is very good.
We found the train station in Amsterdam to be very modern and efficient. Their customer service was specified to each traveler, depending on language and destination. It sped up and eased the travel process significantly. We also found their high-speed trains very organized and modern.
I think when since Spain got a lot of money from the EU, they invested a lot of EU money in into their public transport system, and it has been improved a lot. And I think they took Holland and maybe other countries like Germany for an example. Yeah. But we could learn actually from other countries as goes to fast train system and to a metro system. Because like cities as Madrid and Paris and London, they have a much better metro system.
In Madrid, we spoke to an American student, Jack Smith, studying abroad in the city. He was able to give us a comparative perspective on the importance of the metro in Madrid.
The metro pretty much goes everywhere you need to go, but in between there's bus routes that can get you to the metro if you're too far from a stop, or certain hours when the metro doesn't run, there are buses that run everywhere you need. I use the metro about 2 to 4 times a day, and I use the bus 2 times a day at least. It's very reliable. It comes about every 3 or 4 minutes, and it always tells you when the next train or bus is coming. They have their own TV station here, and they'll show anything from like history to sports.
The Metro's independent news station proves to be a great way to inform Spaniards of current events while they travel in their daily life, and it also exemplifies how often the Metro is used throughout the city.
Nothing can really compare to Madrid so far that I've seen.
Our visit to Ghana proved to be a sharp contrast to the sophisticated transport systems we witnessed in European cities. We had the opportunity to talk to Stephen Go about the public transportation in Ghana, or lack thereof.
Public transportation is not much to write home about, simply because We have some partly state-owned public transport, which is not very well organized and not on time. So you see so many people having their own cars because they don't trust the public transport system.
Okay.
If you want to rely on the public transport system to go to work, you'll be late. Of course, the population is keep on increasing, and so Ghanaians are praying that we should begin to see underground trains in the city, proper rail lines. We have a lot of water bodies, perhaps build canals, around the city, so people could choose from either underground train or train itself on the surface one, or water transport, or nicely run public transport that can take you from one place to another on time. The rail line is nothing to write home about.
Okay.
The one that they built during colonial era is the one which is still existing, and but there's a new contract signed between the Ghana government and China to connect the whole country from the south to the north with a modern rail line with new coaches, which is not yet in place, but that is what we are working towards.
Ghana, Accra, is in desperate straits because of transportation. It's choking because it has restricted itself or committed itself to vehicular truck and automobile traffic. And it's got to the point now it would be very difficult to introduce mass transit. It's really a sort of a breaking point, I think, in terms of transportation and development.
In Buenos Aires, we were able to talk to a public transit authority, Gonzalo Profitos, who informed us on Argentina's public transportation, its history, and its present state.
In Argentina, we say that we are the inventors of the bus or the colectivo. We always had, apart from the buses in town, nowadays we have over 200 bus lines which connect Buenos Aires with the greater Buenos Aires. We have a lot of trains. The trains were made by the British community who live here. So basically they try to connect the whole country. And most of these trains, which are really old, some of them over 100 years old, are kind of obsolete, or the service is very bad. You travel very cheap, but not in the best conditions, but it takes you there on time. Then we have a lot of subways as well. And we had the first subway line in South America in 1913, which was the line 8. Or the future of the country, I think, would be the trains, like something like they have in Europe, because it's cheap. It doesn't need a high maintenance of the railways and the cars. Yeah, the trains are the future. No more buses, and the buses are expensive. They use a lot of petrol. We have electric trains here. They would run better. Actually, some of the train lines, which are diesel, have been turned into power supply. So that's something good for the environment and for the price as well.
As we made our way home back to the US, we focused our attention to how our perspective on transportation has evolved throughout our voyage around the Atlantic. The vitality of public transportation in countries around the world made us realize the shortcomings of public transportation in the US due to America's emphasis on the personal car.
In general, European and some of these other cities, as opposed to American cities, have had a greater option of transportation choices. You can take mass transit, you can take your car, you can take a bicycle, or you can walk. That's less likely, or you can do that less frequently in American cities, right?
We realized that these shortcomings of public transportation in the US are not only detrimental to our country, but the world's environment as well. We had the privilege to speak to Dr. Alan Schoner, an environmental scientist, on the matter.
Most countries, the government owns the rapid transit system, in which case the government subsidizes the system. so that the fares are low. Buses belch out a lot of smoke, but nevertheless, there's less smoke per bus per person than if everybody's in their own automobile. So compared to people owning their own cars, it's just so much better for the environment. I believe that in the U.S., driving an automobile ought to be more expensive. And I think that having free roads, which is what we have over most of the country, those roads are paid for by taxpayer money. Why don't we put the taxpayer money into rapid transit and make people pay to use the roads?
So much follows from where transportation is, and the transportation system affects how we live. It's a fundamental means to be free, to have choice, and it's the basis of economic development.
According to the United Nations, freedom of travel is a basic human right. To travel means to be free, and freedom means prosperity. Public transportation facilitates travel and is key for solving the global environmental crisis. The future of transportation lies in globalized modern mass transit, such as the metro, high-speed trains, and more efficient buses. We think every city should have a reliable, affordable transportation available to all of its residents. Mass transit is sustainable, energy sufficient, and provides a means of freedom and opportunity for the world, which makes for a better future for everyone.